Hello and welcome to Starting Out Sober. My name is Matthew James Sullivan. I am your host. Today I am 138 days sober. Great stuff. Great stuff. So last night I went to a concert. I saw one of my favorite bands, this band called Explosions in the Sky. They're kind of an instrumental rock band, write really long, epic songs. And I was thinking about, something very important to me, which is live music. And now live music and sobriety go together. Because, before past 4 months, I've been drunk at pretty much every show I've gone to since I was probably 16. And now I've experienced many shows because I go to a lot of concerts, nice and sober. And I just want to talk about that. So, yeah, live music is just about my favorite thing in the world. I consider myself a sports fan, a film and TV buff, a reader, but nothing tops music for me, especially live music. In the past 10 plus years, I lived in Boston and I probably went to probably 40 to 50 concerts a year. Pretty much everyone was, I was every concert I was at, I was drinking or even showed up drunk to. Earlier this year, I bought tickets to a show with one of my best friends. And in the meantime, I actually decided to get sober and go to detox, as we've talked about on this podcast. The show was the day after I got out of detox, so not great timing. And I was pretty certain I wasn't going to go. I thought about it a lot. And when I was in detox, I had tickets. At some point, I needed to decide if I was going to do it or not. Or despite it being pretty triggering, I made it through the concert with. I decided to go and made it through the concert with a little help from my friend and my friend, from my friend and my wife. My wife barely drinks and wasn't really drinking that night. My friend has been long term sober, who I went with, so it was kind of a great crowd to be amongst. You know, great core friend group. So I couldn't ask for two better people to go to my first sober show with since I was probably 16. 20 years of drinking at shows, and now I'm experiencing live music with a somewhat clear mind. I say somewhat because, at that show, I was still experiencing immense brain fog, and I had that for about a month after getting sober. But now I'm seeing shows with a very clear mind. So going back to that show, my wife and I went to dinner around the corner from Levitate, which is a venue in the South Shore of Massachusetts. A band was one of my favorite bluegrass bands, Molly Tuttle and the Golden Highway. I ordered a fresh lemonade from the bar, which would become the drink I order everywhere, as we talked about in the What to Drink podcast. During the opener, I was uneasy, but I had my friend and my wife by my side. Once Molly and her band came out and I started feeling better though. A few songs in, I was fully engrossed in the music and remained that way the rest of the show. It was an amazing show, and I felt a little bit of weight lifted off my shoulders as we drove home for the night. I would experience this again when I went to Dead and Co., the Grateful Dead offshoot with John Mayer and O'Teal. I saw some of their final shows at Fenway Park, which was awesome. I was more nervous for these shows because there are lots of drinking and drugs around. It was also my first time in Boston since I got sober. So this was a lot of things that could be triggering towards me. But the whole thing just wasn't overall that triggering as I assumed. Once, this is a few months sober at this point, and once again, the music started, and I was just one with the music playing. Dead and Co. played some of my favorite songs over the weekend, including some otherworldly renditions of Terrapin Station and Althea. I made it through two shows in Boston and felt so good after. I wasn't peeing every 15 to 20 minutes because I was chugging down drinks and broke the seal. I just drank some water and listened to music I love. My next big show was the Newport Folk Festival at the end of July. I've been going to Newport since probably I think 2010, and even have the emblem tattooed to my arm. A nice thing about Newport is drinking is kept in kind of fenced off beer gardens. Naturally, over the years, I spent more and more time in beer gardens than being up close and present with music. This year, I was focused on the music. I got to see amazing sets from some of my favorite songwriters like Jason Isbell and the 400 Unit and Gregorian Isakov. Isakov literally brought me to tears multiple times during his set. It was one of the best sets I've ever seen at Newport. It was just otherworldly. It was just amazing. And because I wasn't in the beer gardens, I spent more and more time at the stage of seeing artists I'd never seen before. One I really liked was Jupiter and Aquest. They were really cool. One of the coolest parts about Newport this year too was in my sober state was that they had a sober tent hosted by 1 Million Strong in Phoenix, which I had never heard of prior to this. Their organizations for sobriety. I was honestly nervous and embarrassed to go to the tent at first, but ended up checking it out anyways the first day, and it was an amazing experience. They had couches, shade, mocktails, and more. It was actually the first time I ever had a mocktail because I thought they'd be triggering because I just want a mixed drink. But during the first day of the festival, I was sitting watching a set, and a gentleman from the Phoenix came to me. I thanked him for bringing the sober tent to Newport and explained how new I was to sobriety. He shook my hand, said congrats, and told me a bit about himself. He had been sober for 40 years. I was blown away. After our chat, people started to gather around the couch I was sitting on. The man said they were having a meeting. I was immediately nervous and wanted to leave, as I had never done an in person meeting before. I've only done them over Zoom on my Reframe app. I sucked it up and stuck around. People introduced themselves and talked about live music and sobriety. I spoke about how amazing it was to see this year, especially since I got sober this year, and told them that I hope they have it every year from now on. The next day, I spent a lot of time in there and did a meeting there again. These sober women got to talk about being sober in the jam band community, like, Deadheads and stuff. But I guess pretty much every jam band these days have a sober community within. The Dead, Fish, even newer ones like Goose and Billy Strings. But it all started with the Dead, who is my favorite jam band of all time. Um, People would set up blankets and raise yellow uh, umbrellas or like yellow. I think it was yellow umbrellas to signal that people in the crowd, um, that it was a sober section of the crowd. They even held meetings between sets at these shows. For me, though, just knowing that there's a strong support in the realm of live music is amazing. I know if, you know, I can drink at hundreds of shows over 20 years and then stop and not only still enjoy the live music setting, but honestly enjoy it more, I know others can too. Music is magical. Music is so important to me. And now I'm realizing being sober with music brings out the best in me. And that's it for today's episode. If you like the music, you can listen to Snowmelt, 2 words, Snowmelt. You can find me on Instagram at Starting Out Sober Pod. We kind of have a building a little community there. I have well over 500 followers now, which is really cool. And just like I like interacting with people on there. On TikToks at Starting Out Sober. We've been getting a lot of views of the pod and of the video form of the pod on there, and just post some other content on there. And yeah, that's it today. So thank you very much. Bye.